Hey everybody, Brandon here, welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be covering game number 4 in my 8th tournament. And I am currently 2 out of 3, and I won my first game, lost the second, and won the third. Now I am playing against Raymond, who I actually have played a few games against, and not yet. I believe that will happen in the future. However, this is our first game, and wow, this was one of the most difficult games, period. And we will see why. But let's talk about the game now. Okay. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, and bishop to B5. We see A6 and bishop to A4, so I'm already very happy here because this is something I've studied a lot, and I would say at this point with playing chess, this is probably the position I've studied the most. So these are definitely my bread and butter positions, as we'll actually see in the game. Knight F6, not knight anywhere, castles, B5, bishop B3, and bishop B7. Rook E1, bishop C5, and C3. So they're playing a little bit differently, and I'm not actually too worried about any knight G4s here after C3. Not only is there D4, but also if I'm really worried, then I can also just play rook E2, and F2 is sufficiently defended. So in multiple ways I can defend it. I'm not really too worried about that. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, because sometimes some people are a little worried of knight to G4. But okay, D6 and D4, the principled approach. We see bishop B6. I played bishop to G5. I'm just trying to improve my position the best I can, and I thought bishop to G5 would be an interesting move here because, well, they don't have a bishop on E7 to block this piece. So they played A5, and I played A4, another thematic move, just trying to go for the B pawn and isolate their A pawn, trying to create a weakness on the side of the board. We see B4, and I ignore it because if you were to take, there's two options. There's knight takes and there's pawn takes, but both are usually quite good for black. For example, knight takes, and the thing is the A pawn isn't really too weak because we don't have the rook on A1 attacking it. So I ignore this altogether and I play D5. Now we see knight E7, and I have a huge advantage because of bishop takes F6. Even though I'm opening up the G file towards my king, the thing is they couldn't castle long because c takes b4, and I open up the king side, or the queen side, very quick. So now they're kind of stuck in the center after g takes f6. Knight h4. This is a natural move because when we look at the position, when you see doubled pawns like this, you have to ask yourself where the weaknesses are, and often the weaknesses are either those pawns themselves or the square in front of it, because, well, there's no pawns to protect those squares. And normally when you have a knight on f5, that's a very good piece. So that's exactly what I did here. I moved my knight to attack f5 and also prevent f5 from black. We see bishop c8, covering f5 just a little bit more. I played knight to d2, so I'm just trying to develop maybe knight to c4 and then to e3, which was something that I really wanted to play. F5, so they finally get this F5 move in, but it's just not quite that great anymore because I have queen H5, and the thing is, their position, even though they got an F5, if they were to take on E4, for example, knight takes E4, and we can see that my pieces are just extremely active here, and there's no doubt that I'm better. But okay, F4 closes things down, tries to prevent any of this nonsense. I played bishop to c4. I'm just seeing if I can go for a check. I thought this check was actually very interesting, but it also gives me the option to remaneuver if I need to. So that's also nice. Bishop to d7, just avoiding any checks. Knight d to f3, with the idea of knight to g5, attacking f7. And we see knight to g6. However, after knight to g6, what are they no longer controlling? They're no longer controlling the f5 square, and this is exactly what I jump into with knight to f5. Now we see queen to f6, c takes b4. Now I'm trying to open the queen side to further deteriorate or deter them from castling long. a takes b4, and just b3. I thought this was actually a really good move in the game. It's not terrible, but I think there might have been better options here. For example, even bishop to b5, trying to pin the bishop because then the knight can't be taken. After bishop to b5, well, c6, I can take it, and after takes and takes, rook takes a1, rook takes a1, this knight on f5 is a monster, and it's actually quite hard to move out of the way. And my position is very solid, and I would say that white has a near winning advantage. I wouldn't say like a winning advantage. I would say this is very close to just crumbling for black. So, okay, going back to the game, but I played b3 instead of bishop to b5. Realistically nowadays I'd play bishop b5. This just looks like the better move, preventing any taking on f5 here. We see b3, bishop takes f5, e takes f5, so they were able to take, and knight to e7. I play bishop b5 check now, king to d8, and knight to g5. Very tricky move. The whole point is if they were to take, then knight takes f7 will actually win the exchange, where after they move somewhere, then we can just take, and then take on h8, and likely we could even win the whole piece, depending on where the king goes. But that's just one example. Now after that, when we go further, after knight to g5, king c8, knight takes f7 anyways, because we can just take the pawn, rook to g8, and knight to h6. And now I'm just protecting the pawn. This is reasonable, and there's always queen e8 checks if they ever attack me with the rook, which is exactly what happened in the game. King b7, bishop c6, otherwise this whole idea wouldn't work. Bishop c6, and they have to take it with the knight, as if they move away, then there's queen takes a8 with checkmate. So unfortunately they do have to take with the knight. And after queen takes e6 check, king b8, we do have a winning idea here. And the whole idea is a5. And the whole point behind a5 is after bishop takes, there's queen b5 check. And why does this work? Because after bishop to b6, rook takes a8, king takes, check, and no matter where the king goes, we have rook to a1 next move and rook to a8, and this is impossible to stop. However, after this, they played king c8, and I was a little confused here. Realistically, you could probably just take, but there is another option, which is what I played in the game. Rook e to c1, but we have to be very careful here. After f3 is a nice move, threatening rook takes g2, so I play g3, queen takes h6, and this is where I make a mistake, a very, very bad mistake. I'm losing after this move. I have a win, and it's a very easy win. Honestly, anyone should be able to see this, and I don't know. Whenever I see this game, it's like a wound opens. It's very uncomfortable to watch because queen e8, a very obvious move, just forces a checkmate after rook takes c7. King takes, then there's queen to c6, and that's a mate, but also if bishop takes, then there is just queen a8, and king b6, queen c6. This is checkmate. But okay, how is this checkmating? After king takes, rook to c1, king to b7, queen to b5 check, bishop b6, very important move to force this first, and then queen c6, and then we can, either if king b8, we can just take, and that's checkmate, king a7, and then rook to a1. And rook a1 will be mating, and also king a6. This is just checkmate as the bishop is pinned. But okay, and then after queen c6, king a7, rook a1, king b8, and takes with checkmate. And this is all checks. This is very forced. I realistically should have seen this, but I thought that the move rook takes a5 was better for some reason. I'm not too sure why. And after rook takes a5, I'm losing, surprisingly. After rook takes g3, my rook on c1 is undefended, and I am paying the price dearly. H takes, queen takes c1, king h2, queen to h6, king to g1, rook takes a5, And unfortunately, this is losing. Queen e8 is what I tried here. I was just trying to go for a perpetual where maybe the rook is in a bad place, because they have the idea of queen h3 next move and then queen to g2. And there's no way to stop this, because if king to f1, then there's just checkmate. And unfortunately, even a move like queen f1 doesn't work, because, well, they're just up a rook, and that's a losing position as well. And after rook a5, queen e8, king b7, queen c6, king b8, I have no more checks, realistically, because after this, king a7, so after queen to c6 and king b8, I just resigned, and this was probably the hardest loss I have had up to this point, and I definitely took a pretty big break after this tournament because of this game, because it's unfortunate to have such a great position. You have the clear advantage the whole time, and then you kind of just mess it up for something really, really stupid. I'm sure all of you guys that do play chess can attest to that. It's kind of hurts in your feels a little bit. But I learned a lot from this game. I learned that you need to make sure you're staying focused throughout the entire game. I was just careless at the end. And carelessness is what made me lose here, and it was very unfortunate, but it is a necessary lesson for everyone to learn. Just because you're in a better position doesn't mean you should become careless. That is what will make you lose your games. But yeah, so that's what happened, and good on my opponent. Very, very good on my opponent. Very impressive for finding this rook takes g3, which I completely missed. Rook takes g3, winning the c1 rook, and it's not just winning the c1 rook, it's putting me in a mating net with ideas like queen to f1, not immediately because the rook is in the way, but there are mating net ideas here, and very unfortunate, but these things happen, and you learn from them, you grow from them, and that's what matters. But that's all I can really say, and I'm not feeling great in the tournament so far, and I am hoping that in the final 2 rounds, this was, I believe, round 4. This was round 4, so I still have 3 games left. I'm hoping in the final 3 rounds I have better luck than this. Anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy, and I will see you in the next game.